Hi, folks. This is Mountain Man coming to you from parts unknown. How y'all doing this evening?
Let me shut that music off and see what's going on in the chats. Hi, everybody. Hi, Doc. Hi, Lisa. Hi, Mike. Karen, how are you? So everybody's showing up. That's good. Uh, I decided to go live because we've been having these votes going on for Speaker of the House. They're going to resume tomorrow with a seventh vote. And I want to thank everybody for showing up tonight and anybody who tunes in after the broadcast and listens to it after we're done with the chats. If you want to know when I go live, subscribe and hit the notification bell, and you can join the chats. Hi, Nikki B. How you doing? Kate, how are you? So, everybody's been keeping up with what's going on in the house, and I tell you, I keep up with what Mr. T's been saying, and a lot of people, some of the places I go, there's live chats and people put all these names in. I even saw somebody put in Kash Patel for speaker. And so McCarthy needs 218. One of the votes, I think the fifth one, the sixth one, he had 201. And they put up a nice fellow named Byron Donalds. And everybody was all pumped up about him. But you have to remember that DJT, Mr. T, said, take the victory and run with it. Get down to business. So that's what I'm looking at. But I also know that this is a game. To a certain degree, it's a game. Now, Trump did truth out yesterday that they're playing a very dangerous game, And that was after, I believe, Matt Gaetz said if he had to, he was going to vote for this Hakeem Jeffries. Now, I think that was a bluff, but I think it was a little overboard. And there's a lot more to it. But I think that McCarthy is being up there. He's going to get it, I believe. He has been working with Trump. He has met with Trump in the past. But I think this is a beating he's got to take. And I think this is a beating the establishment's got to take. Don't you all think so? Don't you agree? I hope the signal's coming in good. And it's a well-deserved beating the establishment has to take. But I just don't want people to get too anti-McCarthy because, as I said before, Trump is the titular head of the Republican Party, and he's already put out his word on what he thinks should happen, and that should be respected. But by the same time, they need to squeeze as much out of McCarthy as they can. That's reasonable. That will strengthen the Republican Party. The other thing that's going on, a lot of people don't realize or recognize, is that people within the Republican Party, nobody under normal circumstances would ever hear about, are getting their day in the sun. And they are showing that this movement is not a cult movement. By even temporarily not snapping to attention to Trump's orders, they're showing that they have independence and that there are other factions of the party. Okay. And I think that is all well and good with Trump. Both McCarthy having to take a little bit of a beating and get lumped up. I think that's all fine and good with Trump as long as they don't go too far. And also that other people in the party get some exposure and show that we are a multifaceted party, not totally a bunch of Trump groupies. But at the same token, they need to listen to Trump. But there was a big concession today where it was reported that McCarthy. I'm going to see if I can drop out of here. If I go dead for a second or two, I'm going to be looking at another device, and I want to know if it interferes with the broadcast because I want to make sure I get this report right. Okay, let me see what happens. I'm going out now, and the concession I heard was that McCarthy agreed that their super PAC, they cut a deal not to get involved in safe open seat primaries. And for many anti-McCarthy votes, that was a top concern. And what that does is it paves the way for more MAGA candidates to win in open seat primaries without facing well-funded establishment candidates. Now, I hope that all came in clear, folks. Were you able to hear me? They trick that they pull, the establishment, is when somebody comes up that they think is an upstart or not singing their song or playing their tune, they put up another candidate against them, and the RNC or super PACs backed by the RNC fund another person and trip up somebody who is trying to go with the MAGA program. So that is going to pave the way to where it's a level playing field. So that is oh good. I got 5x5. That's good. I can check some things on this other device without disrupting the stream. That's helpful to me. I have to go from memory because I don't have any script or anything. I just go off the top of my head. Now, so I don't know at what point it's going to say, well, they're going to look at it and say, okay, we've got just about as many concessions as we can reasonably expect, and certain people are going to give McCarthy his 218. That's what I feel is going to happen. But he's got to earn it. He's got to go through this, and the American people need to know that the uniparty has got serious and solid opposition that is going to be not going for any particular party so much as for the public good. And McCarthy is getting a strong message, that the public is on to a lot of this party games. Now, you look at how the Democrats are behaving. They haven't given 1 inch, not 1 inch. And this Hakeem Jeffries has gotten within 5 votes or maybe even closer, 4 votes from being actual speaker. Not that would happen, but then you have Gates coming in there, and I'm not fond of that strategy of him saying they would vote for Hakeem over what's his face. But anyway, he did it, and people can take that for what it's worth. And hi, Georgia. How are you doing? Hi, Bubba. How are you doing? Sandy. We got everybody's coming in. That's great. Now, one thing, did you all see the videos where Matt Gaetz was even going up talking to AOC? And there was another Republican, I forget his name. He was talking with AOC. Do you see anybody from the left coming over to talk to anybody on the right? They're not even thinking about voting for anybody else than Hakeem Jeffries. They're walking in lockstep. Let me get a sip of my coffee. And Trump has mentioned many times that is why they're so successful. They stick together no matter what. Now, whose fault is it that Republicans are having a rift? Well, it ain't all Matt Gaetz' fault, because we're all of a mind that the Republican establishment has not been doing us any favors. The Mitch McConnell, the old crow, that party, they haven't been doing us any favors. So there's plenty of blame to go around, but let's just hope it all, once it boils up, that it purifies the pot and settles down. And we don't know what the mechanics are or the backstory is. Okay, I see Finding Dory. Can they come back and vote for Donald Trump? I addressed that in the past, and I put it on my thumbnail as kind of a joke. You see Trump sitting there in the Nancy Pelosi's old spot, and that's why I was thinking they want to threaten Hakeem Jeffries. We'll threaten Donald Trump now. How you like that? Maybe that's the one thing that would get the Democrats to crack and vote for McCarthy. And somebody brought up a point on Truth Social that was pretty neat. If McCarthy is such a rhino and so good for the Democrats, you know, a closet Democrat, how come a few of them had broke ranks and just went ahead and put McCarthy in? If he's such a bad thing, you know, that tells you something right there. And this Byron Donalds, everybody got all excited because he got up to, I don't know, 21, 20 votes. I don't know. 218 to win. That means he's got less than 10%. Okay. But this all might be happening just to drag it out in front of the public, get some concessions, not just from McCarthy, but from the establishment. Because McCarthy's in a position where the establishment has no other choice. They can't put anybody else up. And there are plenty of options for the non-establishment. So they got to go with McCarthy. And that gives McCarthy a lot of power. But the thing is, he would not be desired by the rhinos if he did not play the game and let them think that he would be their best choice. Like I said before, if you want to trip up the devil, sometimes you got to dance with him. So we got to take our cue from Mr. T, and I think they can get the concessions they want out of him. And some people can save face by switching their vote for McCarthy. I know I was surprised with Lauren Boebert that she's against McCarthy and de facto against Trump. But then again, she may be one of the sleepers that will say, okay, we got what we wanted from McCarthy. I can vote for him now. Because it only needs, realistically, I think if you take away those 5 people that have said they would never, ever, ever, ever vote, including Matt Gaetz, he doesn't need, but I don't know, let's see, probably another 6 or 7 votes to go with him that were strong against him. There are some people that are not voting for him, but they're weakly against him. They're just playing along, and you don't know why they're being put in that position. So anyway, let me just see what's going on with the chats. It is a chess game for sure, Roy says. And yes, sometimes Trump puts people forward to expose them. That's what I was talking about last night. What is another thing in this equation is who are they evaluating? As I've said many times in the past, making a list, checking it twice. Okay? Find out who's naughty and who's nice. This is a good exercise to do that. Doug, I see what you're saying. McCarthy would be in line for POTUS. I've been over that before. It's not that cut and dry. The Speaker of the House would be in line for POTUS if something happened to both the Vice President and the President at the same time. Then the third person would be the Speaker of the House. But the way it is now and the way it happened under Nixon is, as proof of this, is that like when Spiro Agnew resigned the presidency and later on Nixon resigned, there was a whole different dynamic. Nixon appointed another vice president who the Senate approved, and Henry Kissinger, the Secretary of State, was the acting vice president, and we ended up with Gerald Ford as president and Nelson Rockefeller as vice president that nobody ever voted for, and the Speaker of the House had no chance as a snowball in you-know-where of getting to be the president. So the Speaker of the House is third in line only under very narrow circumstances. So I've got a video on that. It's called Who's Next? And you can find that on RUMBLE. So I see we got a screwball in the chats, and I'm sure that'll get taken care of. So again, I'll get quiet sometimes. I'm just reading the chats and seeing what's going on. And like I say, is if they could take keywords out, or they got a new policy where just people in the chats put in something wrong. I don't see it. Nikki doesn't see it, or whatever. The machine sees it, and you get suspended sometimes for a week, or they take out your entire channel. So I heard that from two very good creators that put a warning out to their viewers. That's why I always say put a letter in place. I mean, a number in place of a letter for some keywords. Like I say P3DO. That's how you spell it, P3DO. And you know what that spells, right? And I don't have to say it. But they can do that, but they can't get rid of these things that you just saw in my chats that Nikki took care of. If nobody did anything about them, they would just be invading the chats. But yet again, they can take out people who are just freely discussing lawful speech. But anyway, that's another issue for another day. That's right. They don't care about us. And hi, Tobin. We see who's for sale. That's right. And there's deals going to be cut. And I tell you, I'm a little on the fence about Gates. I've been over some of that stuff about him in another broadcast I did with Nikki. I was discussing some of issues he had that were very suspicious to me. And this push to get Jordan in the speakership right after Jordan said he didn't want it. Let me tell you something. If you've got a really good fighter, somebody who can get out on the battlefield and really be effective, and you want to neutralize him for whatever reason, put him on the throne, okay? Put him on the throne, take him off the battlefield. And that's the kind of the way I felt some of these rhinos wanted to do with Jordan. They know if he gets in charge of that judiciary, there's going to be some heads getting cracked. So they want to put him on the throne. And that's what they tried to do with Teddy Roosevelt back in 1920 or whatever it was. He was a police chief in New York. He was rattling too many cages. of the New York machine, and they said, let's kick him upstairs. They arranged it for him to be nominated for vice president, got him out of their hair, but they didn't realize that he would end up being president, the youngest president. Anyway, that's another history issue, but that's one thing I didn't like, where they were trying to take a ready, willing, and able fighter out of the battle by putting him on the throne. That's an old political trick. So I did get a couple of questions about, I'll just go off subject real quick, about this business of Gitmo, where somebody said there was some kind of action down there. And I responded to them, and I'll respond to everybody that I haven't heard anything like that. And I think it's there when there's things going on. The black brims, I call them black brims, put out stories that are fantastic to get people not to look. And the notion of some kind of a kinetic military action being taken against Gitmo is just a little too much, a little too far out there. I even went so far as to check Dave Zubliak's channel. I don't know if you all are familiar with him, but I mean, he puts up stuff like, does the Vatican have a time machine? If somebody's into that kind of stuff, they can go to channels like that. But even he didn't even mention that. So that was I've heard it about half a dozen times in comments and in the chats about something at Gitmo. And that is, I'm putting that in the Mike Penny basket, the Phil Godlewski basket, those kind of baskets. And they're also called pails, P-A-I-L. Waste basket, trash pail, in my mind. If somebody else believes it, fine, no arguments from me. But I haven't heard anything credible about anything like that. Donna says, what happens if they can't vote in a speaker? Well, they will. And I may have mentioned in our past broadcasts, back in 1859, I think it was, they did over 130 votes, and it took 2 months to get in a speaker. So they'll get there at some point. And I think Trump is letting McCarthy take and the establishment, not just McCarthy. I'm not going to pick on him only. The whole establishment needs to get drug around a little bit, needs to get lumped up a little bit. And I think Trump's allowing that because he has not called any individual out. You get Trump mad enough, he'll put your name out there. And he's talking in general, telling them to be careful. They're playing a dangerous game, take the victory and run with it. But he's not singling out anybody like he is the old crow Mitch McConnell or other people who have engendered his ire. But if it gets to that point, I think you will see Trump coming out and saying something about it. Because as I've said, with what's happening, it is best for Trump to have clean hands, for him not to be blamed for some of the things that are going to be coming about. But he does have to lead the party to a certain degree. So anyway, let's see what else is going on. Well, we do need a speaker at some point, Debbie, because we, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, she was on the War Room, and she put out basically that they can't even swear in the new members right now. They can't even they can't open investigations. They can't do a lot of stuff till they get a speaker. But then again, I was thinking about what General Flynn said. Just shut it down. Just shut it down. I was trying to think, what did Matt Gaetz do in the past that really made him stand out as a fighter for Trump, a fighter for MAGA? I really can't think of anything except where he said, I put the laptop in the congressional record. And he had this big grin, and he said it a couple times. He puffed his chest out. You know, that was after he came off this scandal about some 16-year-old young male that was in his house, and it turned into a mess, and he ended up suing somebody, and nobody ever really found out a lot about that. And when you have a scandal that neither side will touch or take advantage of, it makes my antennas go up. Okay, but he said, I put the laptop in the congressional record. That's got all those crimes on it. Okay, and that was what, over half a year ago? What has happened because of that? Nothing, zero, nothing. So I'm kind of in General Flynn's corner. Shut it down till you get it worked out, till this mess gets straightened out. Because what else did I say about the military? That they wouldn't step in until it was proven that the institutions that are supposed to implement, enforce, and support the Constitution cannot or will not function as they are intended. Okay? In other words, when the Constitution has been abandoned, whether willfully or by people who have no ability to do their duty to it, somebody's got to step up and defend it. And this may be one of the things. So I could care less if Congress doesn't do anything for 2 months. I could care less. And that includes investigations, because like I said, they took something rank and open criminality like that laptop and put it in the congressional record, and nobody's done a damn thing. That tells me that that institution is not working in the manner in which it was intended. Okay, so what do y'all think of that thought? The search for truth. What's up? You're up. Yeah, that's right, Georgia. How much more proof do they need? So I can see Jim Jordan being put in positions on the judiciary when he's got some bite to his bark. And right now, the way the system is set up with the rhinos and with the radical left that's taken over the Democratic Party, there's no bite to that bark. And that is institutional. That is set up to be institutionalized, that Congress can be stymied as far as enforcing the laws. But you look at what they can do, what they've done with the defendants from January on that sixth day of January. Look what they've done with them when they want to. But it is set up now that if they don't want to do anything, or they don't want anything to happen to them personally, whatever happened to this slush fund they had where they were paying off young pages, okay? Whatever happened to the record of that, where were paying hundreds of thousands of dollars out with our tax money? They had an actual separate fund in the House of Representatives, in Congress. There's somebody had a problem with where they were messing around with people who were very young, that they paid them off. Remember that scandal? Nobody's done anything about that. So anyway, I say let it go on. Let the battle go on. But we get any signals from Mr. T that needs to stop, then it needs to stop. And McCarthy, now they were claiming, well, we had a deal. McCarthy, all he would have had to do was we had some concessions. If he would have agreed to them yesterday, he would be Speaker of the House right now. Oh, really? What was that concession? That one person out of 400, and I don't know, 435 or however many it is, one person could call for a vote to have the speaker replaced at any time. That is not a concession. That's ridiculous. Who would agree to be Speaker of the House if every day you wake up, there's one of those 400 and some people calling for you to get thrown out of office? How could you be authoritative? How could you be effective? It is a ridiculous concession to ask of any Speaker of the House. So I did want to expose that. And who came up with that? Matt Gaetz. Okay. So I'm not saying nothing except he makes me uncomfortable. I don't like his past struggle, I'll say, instead of saying scandal. But it stinks, okay? And nobody ever cleared the air as far as I'm concerned. Nobody ever even described what that problem was. There weren't even any Democrats jumping on that scandal. There wasn't any rhinos jumping on that scandal. Nobody wanted to talk about it. And it involved somebody who was not of age. Okay? Yep, General Flynn is right. Take it down to the stud, Georgia says. So some people may have ulterior motives, but this dressing down of the rhinos, the uniparty needs to happen. I do get a little frustrated sometimes because people don't look at it that way. They think they're going to pull a rabbit out of the hat like this young man, Byron Donalds. Let me tell you, a freshman congressman getting catapulted to Speaker of the House ain't going to happen, okay? And certain concessions they're asking for McCarthy that are ridiculous ain't going to happen. And the other thing I wanted to point out is that Jim Jordan gave a very sincere and heartfelt endorsement of McCarthy. And I can tell you this, Jim Jordan, if McCarthy crossed Jim Jordan, he would regret it. I'm sure he gave concessions to Jim Jordan that he feels comfortable with, Jordan feels comfortable with, and if McCarthy were to stab him in the back, that would not be a very good move. So that's another thing. Those two endorsements from Mr. T and Jim Jordan are enough for me. And I would not be 100% anti-McCarthy. And it's like one person put out, if the Republicans can't even come to an agreement on a Speaker of the House when they have control of the House, how good are they going to be by taking care of even simpler things that really need to be looked at? I mean, it's getting to the point where the party is starting to look foolish. And at some point that people have to be called out for that. And just like I'll talk about with Matt Gaetz saying he'd vote for Hakeem Jeffries. That was a ridiculous statement. I don't think he should have ever made it. Anyway, I've got up there black letter of law. A lot of you heard me talk about that black letter of law before. And part of that, I put that up there so it'll mark it. I don't know which video I was talking about stuff. This thing with Carrie Lake is she's gone ahead and filed her appeal to the Arizona Supreme Court. She's jumped over the Court of Appeals and gone straight to the Arizona Supreme Court. And as far as I know, that has been agreed to be heard. or they've agreed to look at it. It's just like the Brunson case. They've agreed to look at it. A lot of people think January 6th is when the Brunson case will be heard and or decided. No, they agree to look at it. That's the first thing they do. Let's agree that we agree to look at it. Okay. And that's the stage Brunson is at. That is what's happening now with the Arizona Supreme Court and Kari Lake. They've agreed to look at it. Just so after the Arizona Supreme Court, if that does not pan out for Kari Lake, the next thing is the Supreme Court, federal Supreme Court. But the black letter of the law is what I discussed yesterday, and that is what the Arizona Supreme Court is going to have to look at. The black letter of the law in Arizona law is if there are deficiencies that cause doubt to the outcome. That's the only that is the easiest standard, and that is written in the law, and it's written in precedent. It's so the legislature passed that law, and that ties into the Supreme Court hearing the case right now. They're hearing the case whether or not the state legislatures have the sole power over how elections are conducted. That is going to be decided by this federal Supreme Court, and that's going to impact on Kari Lake's appeal on the state level. Okay? It's all going to be in the black letter of the law. Who was found with a minor? Oh, I shouldn't have said that. Whoa, wait a minute. My chat's froze up. There we go. I didn't realize my chat had froze up. I see what you're saying, Nikki B. That brings me right back to for Trump to run as independent. That's been proven through history. When I talked about Teddy Roosevelt taking a good fighter out of the battle and putting him on a throne by making him vice president, they thought he would be out of their hair, and he ended up being president. Well, anyway, he started what was called the Bull Moose Party. Same thing as what a lot of people are saying that Trump should do, start another party or run as independent. And every time that's been tried, it's failed. What Trump needs to do is just what they're doing right now. This process is getting America Great Republicans to take over the Republican Party, not get mad and take their football and go start another game in another stadium. No, we're going to take over the stadium we already got. If that's makes sense in how I'm putting that. So yeah, Teddy Roosevelt tried that. It was called Bull Moose Party, and he lost. And he was very popular. Teddy Roosevelt was very popular, but the way the cookie crumbled, he lost his chance at being president again. And he could have been president if he'd stayed with the regular party. This process of taking back the Republican Party from establishment creepos, it's a lot of work. And what we're seeing now is part of that work. Exposing people, bringing subjects up, bringing unknowns into the public consciousness. You know, whoever heard of Byron Donalds? Before this situation with what we're dealing with now, how many House of Representative people? I mean, we know about Marjorie Taylor Greene. We know about Lauren Boebert. We know about a lot of representatives that are not of our state. But prior to this America Great movement, prior to that, we were lucky if people knew who their own state representative was. And as I said last night, people never realized how much the Speaker of the House affects their everyday lives. Now people are being taught that. Why? So when this gets straightened out, it can never happen again. I guarantee you, it's going to get so bad. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but my opinion is it's going to get so bad that, believe me, from now on, everybody is going to want to know who their state representative is. Can most people in chats name who their state representatives are? They run your life. They make decisions about your children, about your paycheck, about your freedoms. Do you know who they are? So we're getting educated. Painfully educated. That's right, Patriot Missile. Crenshaw was calling the people that vote against. Oh, see, I don't like it, Contal. I don't like Crenshaw. Now, see, Crenshaw, as far as I'm concerned, he's establishment. But, this is part of the game. McCarthy, he's got to attract as many people in the party as possible. But I think he's Trump's pick. Now, Trump's going to keep him on a short leash. And I know Jim Jordan is going to keep him on a short leash. So, I'm going to keep my eye on Gates because something about him has always made me uncomfortable before any of this ever started. I always gave Gates a side eye. I can't think of him ever. I can think plenty of times Jim Jordan came out and I said, man, that's a good Republican right there. I can remember when Devin Nunes came out, and I said, man, that's a good Republican right there. Going out into the Senate, I can remember when Rand Paul made statements. Ted Cruz made statements. I can't think of anything Matt Gaetz has come out where I said, oh, right, way to go. Except he said, I put the computer in the, yeah, okay. And nobody cared. Nobody touched it. Just like that controversy you went through. Nobody touched it. And that's right, Sharon. Dual citizenship is an issue. What was her name? Spartz. Spartz. I saw that today, where people in the chats in another site I was on was Victoria Spartz, she abstained, and who she's going to vote for? Well, I'll tell you what. She's a representative from Indiana, I believe. I did a video where I showed her in combat gear in a little car riding around with three other guys that were dressed in their combat gear with their rifles, riding around Ukraine, pumping up to send more money to Ukraine. She's a dual citizen with Ukrainian citizenship. And the person who was driving the car she was sitting right next to, I showed footage of where he was torturing a Russian soldier and supporting the Nazi philosophy. So I don't care about Victoria Spartz, but I think things like this get the word out. And I agree 100%. Dual citizenship, you're either for this country or you're not. You're not, well, I'm for Ukraine because I'm a citizen there too, but I'm going to be a member of the House. No. You're either American and you support the Constitution. You're not a Like Vindman was offered the Secretary of Defense position in Ukraine, and he's proud of that because he's a dual citizen. No, I don't think people in that condition, if they don't forswear their other country, if they don't, my mother had to do it when she took her citizenship test. She had to say, I am an American to the bone. That's what needs to be done for people who are going to be in a position of public trust in the United States. So anyway, Gates could be clean. I mean, he could be fine. I don't know. He just makes me uncomfortable. He's a little too much like Eddie Munster for me. That's right, Georgia. Anyone who wants to run for office needs to be loyal to America and God, period. Campaign finance reform. I see Search for Truth mentioned that. Who was behind that? McStain was behind that, okay? And he was over there in Ukraine plenty of times too. I mean, we don't know who our representatives are, and we don't know what they pass. They don't even know what's in the laws they pass. Like I mentioned the other day, they put a thing in the infrastructure bill where all new cars, they can have cutoff switches. They can cut your car off whenever they want to. I thought it was bad enough when they were wanting to force everybody to wear seatbelts. And then they got people running around on motorcycles, but they want to pull you over and ticket you if you don't have a seatbelt on. I know seatbelts are important, but I'm a grown person, okay? If I'm going to go to the McDonald's 30 seconds away or whatever, and I don't feel like going through that ritual. But no, they'll shut your car down. And they don't even know that's in the bill, most of the representatives. That's just like New Zealand. Well, the story I heard, and I told you the world should have a problem with New Zealand. But they pulled somebody over something, and they had some boxes of KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken. They were delivering kind of like whatever that DoorDash or whatever that was. They got arrested because they passed some bill a week or two earlier that said you're not allowed to deliver food to people outside of a certain safety zone. So, they're setting this kind of stuff up to limit people's travel, just like they're trying to set up where people got to do certain things to keep their jobs, kind of like those football players had to do. So, we got to pay attention to this. We have truly been asleep at the switch when it comes to who's been running our government. And the bottom line is, if they're running the government, they're running our lives. So, some people didn't catch what I was talking about with Nancy's texts last night. There have been some texts put out from Nancy's office where they told the current sergeant at arms that was on duty on that January day, the 6th day, was for him. They gave him a new plan for security that reduced security and pretty much set guidelines and parameters that, in my mind, would encourage people to come in the building, actually come in the building. And they told him to act like he was surprised that these changes occurred. And he texted back and said, I'm surprised, yeah. Well, when the you-know-what hit the fan, I believe he may have said, hey, wait a minute, you guys are playing me. This is my own thoughts. But the bottom line is that man is not alive anymore, okay? He's not the sergeant at arms anymore. The one these sneaky texts went out to. Okay? So I think we're going to get to the bottom of that. And that's also when the photos of Ray E. came out, where he was talking to a young man who made a lot of money filming Ashley getting SHOT. Okay? So there's going to be a lot of stuff coming out. A lot of stuff that I already mentioned has publicly come out, and it needs to be talked about. The sergeant at arms was hit by a car, Georgia. I haven't been keeping up with the chats. I'm not. That's right. Control, control, control. That's from Search for Truth. Yeah, Christina, he did. I heard he moved into the speaker's office. Christina, are you just now getting here? Because I've gone over quite a bit about McCarthy. I've gone over quite a bit about it. Because the bottom line is Trump is for him, Jordan is for him, Marjorie Taylor Greene is for him. I think we're just going through an exercise where we're trimming back the establishment. We're trimming them back. And we're putting him through a process. And I think he's playing along with Mr. T to dilute the establishment, just like this last concession he gave, where super PACs would not fund establishment candidates on open primary seats. Okay? So I went over quite a bit about that. I know McCarthy's not the most savory person, but I believe he's part of this operation. I sincerely do. So anyway, let me just jump over. Oh, did you hear about DeSantis giving a speech where they say he sounded very presidential and all this stuff? Who was there at that speech? Jeb Bush, okay? And I had a close-up photograph of Matt Gaetz and Ron DeSantis shaking hands, and it's a Masonic handshake. I don't know if you've ever seen that, guys, but when they're shaking hands, you can imagine the pointer finger, your pointer finger, you take that pointer finger and you press it on the wrist of the person you're shaking hands with. They do that with each other, okay? That's a secret society handshake, I'll put it that way. Because I know a lot of Masons, there's different things going on with that. So not everyone, it's just like any religion, anything, there are groups and subgroups. But anyway, they gave themselves a certain handshake. But anyway, Ron DeSantis was giving a speech, and Jeb Bush was there. Little Jebby. When's the last time we seen him? But then again, Ron DeSantis, I've said before, is a former Navy SEAL combat commander, okay? And he has destroyed the Democratic machine in Florida. So if he's rubbing elbows with little Jebby and doing these handshakes and stuff, I am convinced that he's on our side. And I will say again, if you want to trip up the devil, sometimes you got to dance with him. So I've got all the confidence in the world, DeSantis, and I feel that a lot of this stuff is also to show that the Republican Party is not being filled with a bunch of Trump groupies, okay? There are people that are pushing for an America First agenda, okay, that are not in lockstep with every little thing that Trump says, okay? That's important, and Trump wants people to know that. There are independent thinkers who have America first as their agenda and not him as an individual. As he said before, I won't be around forever. Okay? So, yeah. And the other thing, too, is that this is, or do we have a functional government? Something that can actually do what the Constitution calls for. How can you support and defend the Constitution if you can't function in the way you're intended? So, hey, and if it shuts down, how can it implement the Constitution? And if you are a member of the military and it's your job, your sworn job, okay, to protect, defend, support the Constitution, and the civilian mechanisms have failed, cannot or will not function as intended, okay, and the people can see that, somebody's got to step in, okay. We're a long way off from that. I'm just saying, it's out there. It's out there. So I'm like General Flynn. I could care less, shut it down, because every shutdown they do, they've been shut down for months before. Everybody gets paid. Everybody gets just millions of people get to sit home. And hell, we've been doing that since 2020 anyway. Work from home. In the Congress, they're doing Skype votes or whatever they call it, proxy votes. First time in this country's history. Back in the day, well, not even back in the day, 24 months ago, you had to get your backside in that building. You had to be present. No proxies. Okay? Before that, you had to ride a horse or ride a carriage or do whatever it took to get your body from whatever state you were in to that Capitol building for a vote. But because we want to protect grandma from this unseen enemy, as DJT called it, they're implementing these proxy votes. So go ahead and shut it down. People, they print more money anyway. More candy wrappers, and people get paid, but they always act like, oh my God, the world's coming to an end if we shut down the government. Then they shut it down for a week, 3 weeks, 2 months, whatever. Everybody gets paid. Nothing goes wrong. Okay. So go ahead and shut it down. I'm fine with that. So anyway, speaking of governments not functioning as in the manner that they were intended, our southern neighbor in the southern part of our hemisphere, BRAZIL, okay? I've heard a lot of people talking about something called Operation Trust. I've never brought that up in the past, but you might want to look into it. And we will discuss that a little bit more, because I'm coming up on my hour. I will say that there are rumors that certain colonels in the Army are very distraught and fed up with the hierarchy in the Army. Okay? And the calls for a general strike are getting louder and louder. I think we're going to see quite a bit of action in that nation, that southern nation, and we'll discuss that some more. But I'm coming up on my hour, folks, so I appreciate y'all being with me, and I've got links for supporting the channel in the description. And thank you to everybody who has supported me, and everybody that's given me a like, and everybody who has spent their precious time with me as we all walk through history together. And I'll be back soon, and this is Mountain Man, over and out.